The silence of the safe house did not last long. Elias knew it never would. He sat awake through the night, listening to every sound above, every distant hum of engines, every echo of boots on stone. His eyes never closed for more than a few seconds. The alien girl slept, her breathing deeper now, her body slowly gathering strength. Her faint glow brightened the shadows. Elias often found himself staring at her, amazed that she was alive, amazed that he had been the one to keep her heart beating, but safety was an illusion. He knew the authorities would never stop. To them, she was supposed to be dead, and now her survival was proof of his defiance. That was something the system could not allow. By dawn, the city above was restless. News screens flashed with alerts. Human criminal on the run, alien, patient missing. Elias saw it through a crack in the broken wall. His face was shown briefly, grainy but clear enough. The hunt had begun. He looked back at the girl. She was awake now, watching him with those strange, glowing eyes. "They search for us?" she whispered. Elias nodded slowly. "Yes. They won't stop until they find us," she bit her lip weakly, fear flickering across her face. "Then danger for you." He crouched beside her, his voice steady. "No, you are the reason I fight. You are not danger. You are hope." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, a fragile tear slid down her cheek, not from fear, but from something deeper, something like trust. But the moment was broken by a sound. Boots, many boots echoing in the distance above. Drones buzzed like angry wasps, closing in. Elias's heart pounded. He grabbed the small bag he had prepared through the night. Water, food, a few tools. "We have to move now," he whispered. He lifted her again, though his arms ached. Every step hurt, but he ignored it. He carried her through the tunnels beneath the safe house, passages that twisted like veins through the earth. The sounds above grew louder, shouts in the alien language, orders being given. The authorities had found the building, they were sweeping it. Elias pushed harder, following the faint map in his mind. The tunnel led to an old exit near the city's edge. If they could reach it, there might be a chance. The girl stirred in his arms, her voice weak but urgent. "Elias, if they catch us, leave me, save yourself." He stopped, his jaw tightening. He looked down at her fiercely. "No, don't ever say that. You are not something to throw away. You're not what they said you were." His voice cracked with emotion. "You're worth every risk." Her lips trembled, then she whispered, "Then, I live because of you." The words gave him strength. His steps grew faster despite the weight of exhaustion. At last, light appeared ahead, the end of the tunnel. He pushed forward, bursting out into the open fields beyond the city. The air was fresh, the sky wide. For a brief moment, freedom felt real, but behind them the drones swarmed out of the tunnel, red lights flashing. Soldiers poured from the city walls, weapons ready. Elias's heart raced. He could not outrun them carrying her, not for long. He looked toward the horizon and saw something. An old shuttle half buried in the ground, forgotten but not destroyed. "That's it," he muttered. He sprinted toward it, every muscle screaming. He reached the craft and kicked the hatch until it broke open, dragging the girl inside. The controls were ancient, covered in dust, but Elias's hands moved with desperate speed. He had studied ships once, long ago, and though this was alien, the language of survival was the same. Engines coughed, sputtered, then roared. The ground shook as the shuttle came to life. The girl clutched his arm, fear and hope mixing in her glowing eyes. The drones fired, bolts of energy slamming into the hull. Sparks flew, alarms blared. Elias gritted his teeth and pulled the controls. The shuttle lifted slowly at first, then faster, breaking free of the ground. Soldiers shouted below, their weapons useless as the craft rose higher. Inside, the girl stared at him, her voice trembling. "We escape?" Elias looked at her, sweat dripping down his face, his hands steady on the controls. He smiled faintly. "Yes, we're free." Tears welled in her eyes. She reached for his hand, weak but full of trust. "You gave me life, Elias," she whispered. "You are my only hope." The word struck him deeper than any wound. He squeezed her hand gently, his voice low but sure. "And you are mine." The shuttle broke through the clouds, leaving the city behind. Ahead lay stars vast and endless. For the first time, the future was unwritten. They had no map, no plan, only each other. But as Elias looked into her glowing eyes, he knew it was enough. Doctors had left her to die. The world had turned its back. But a human had chosen differently. And in that choice, something greater had been born, not just survival, but a new bond, a new chance, a new hope. The night outside the broken shelter was silent, but Elias could not rest. He sat against the wall, his hand gripping the handle of a small, old blade he carried. His eyes kept moving to the doorway, half expecting it to burst open at any second. The alien girl slept quietly on the blankets, her breathing steadier now. Her faint glow made the room feel less dark. Elias watched her for a moment and whispered to himself, "They'll come. I know they will." As if the universe had been waiting for his words. The sound of engines roared outside. Harsh beams of light swept across the street, piercing through cracks in the wall. Elias's chest tightened. They had found them. He moved quickly to the girl's side, gently shaking her shoulder. "Wake up, we have to go." Her eyes opened slowly, confusion flickering across her face. She whispered, "Safe?" "Not yet," Elias said firmly. "But I'll keep you safe, I promise." He lifted her in his arms, her body still weak but lighter than he remembered. He pushed open the back door of the shelter and slipped into the alley. His footsteps silent, but fast. Behind them, a mechanical voice shouted, "Target identified, human accomplice confirmed, apprehend at once." Elias cursed under his breath. He sprinted through the maze of alleys, the girl's head resting against his shoulder. Drones buzzed overhead, their red eyes scanning the streets. Spotlights cut through the darkness, chasing him like hunters. He turned sharply into another alley, his boots splashing through puddles. He knew the city well enough to find paths the machines would not follow. Narrow passages too tight for drones, broken stairways leading to old rooftops. The girl stirred, weakly in his arms, whispering, "You, tired." Her voice was soft but filled with worry. Elias gave a short laugh, breathless but determined. "I've carried heavier burdens than this. You're not a weight. You're the reason I run." Her hand gripped his shirt weakly, as if to say she understood. Suddenly, a spotlight flashed across them. A drone dropped lower, its mechanical arms unfolding. A sharp voice declared, "Halt or be terminated." Elias's eyes narrowed. He ducked into an old stairwell, taking the steps two at a time. The drone fired a bolt of energy that scorched. The wall beside him, sparks raining down. He shielded the girl with his body and kept running. At the top of the stairs, a metal door blocked their way. Elias slammed his shoulder into it. Once, twice, until it burst open. They stumbled out onto a rooftop, the city stretching before them in neon light. The wind hit them hard, carrying the hum of engines and the distant sounds of the alien world. Elias looked around desperately, searching for a path. The rooftops connected in places, broken bridges of rusted metal and wood. He took a deep breath and whispered to the girl, "Hold tight." Then he ran and leapt across the gap, landing hard on the next rooftop. His knees shook, but he kept moving. The drones were faster, closing in with sharp buzzing. Their red lights painted the rooftops like blood. One fired again, the bolt slamming into the ground near his feet. The impact shook him, but he held on. He turned into another alley, sliding down a rusty ladder with the girl held close. The streets below were crowded with night markets and wandering strangers. Elias slipped into the crowd, lowering his head, wrapping the blanket tighter around the girl to hide her glow. The drones hovered above, scanning, searching. But the crowd shielded him for a moment. People cursed as he pushed through, but he didn't stop. Finally, he ducked into another hidden alley, pressing his back against the wall. His chest heaved with every breath. His arms shook from carrying her. But he didn't let go. The girl looked up at him, her weak eyes filled with worry. "Why risk so much?" He smiled faintly, sweat dripping from his face. "Because I chose you. I chose to save you. No machine, no doctor, No system will take that away. She touched his chest weakly, her fingers trembling. You. Human. Strong. Her words struck him deeper than any weapon. In her voice was not just gratitude but trust, something he hadn't felt in years. The sound of drones echoed again, closer this time. Elias gritted his teeth. They won't stop, not until they have us. He looked at her, determination burning in his eyes. So we keep moving, until we find a place they can't reach. He lifted her again, his legs aching but his spirit unbroken. And as he slipped deeper into the dark veins of the city, chased by machines and hunted by laws, he knew the truth. This was no longer just escape. It was war. A war for one fragile life. A war he had already chosen to fight. Elias pushed through the last stretch of the alley, his legs trembling with exhaustion. His chest burned from running, and sweat dripped down his face. But he refused to stop, not while the fragile weight in his arms still breathed. At last he reached an old building at the edge of the city. The walls were cracked, windows broken, and vines crawled across its surface. To most it looked abandoned, but Elias knew the truth. Beneath its ruins was a place where no one would think to search. He forced the rusty door open and slipped inside. The air was heavy with dust. The smell of wood rot filling his lungs. He moved quickly down a hidden stairway behind a collapsed wall. His boots thudded on stone steps until they reached a large basement chamber. This was the safe house, a place he had discovered months ago while wandering the city, a forgotten shelter from an old war. Its walls were thick, its tunnels winding. Cameras and drones could not easily reach here. It was not perfect, but it was the best he had. Elias laid the alien girl gently on an old cot he had dragged into the room weeks ago. She stirred, her weak eyes opening. Her faint glow lit the shadows, just enough to see. Where are we? She whispered, her voice still fragile. Somewhere they won't find you, Elias said firmly. He crouched beside her, brushing the dust from her blanket. You're safe here for now. She blinked slowly, her lips trembling. You save me again. Elias gave a tired smile, his hand resting on the cot. And I'll keep saving you as many times as it takes. For a long moment, silence filled the room. The girl's gaze lingered on him, confused but full of something else, a trust. A bond was growing between them, fragile but undeniable. Elias checked her pulse again, still weak but steadier. He adjusted the oxygen mask he had carried from the hospital, making sure it fit properly. Every small step mattered now. Every breath she took gave him more reason to fight. When he finally leaned back against the wall, exhaustion hit him like a storm. He closed his eyes for a moment, his body aching, his blood still low from the transfusion. But even in his weariness, he stayed alert, listening for the distant hum of drones. Hours passed in silence. The city above continued to buzz with life, but deep underground, only 2 heartbeats mattered. The girl shifted slightly, her small hand reaching out across the blanket. It trembled before brushing against Elias's wrist. He opened his eyes, surprised. Her voice was soft but clearer than before. Why do this? Why risk your life? For me? Elias stared at her for a long time, his face caught between pain and memory. Because once I couldn't save someone I loved. His voice cracked slightly. I swore if I ever had the chance again, I wouldn't fail. Not this time. The girl's eyes glistened with tears. She did not fully understand his past, but she felt the weight in his words. She squeezed his wrist weakly, whispering, Then I live because of you. The words pierced his heart, filling him with both warmth and sorrow. He leaned closer, his voice steady. No, you live because you chose to fight. I only gave you a chance. For the first time since leaving the hospital, a small faint smile touched her lips. The safe house was silent, but the bond between them grew louder than any words. Elias felt it deep inside. This was no longer about guilt or duty. It was about her, about protecting the fragile life in front of him. But safety was fragile too. Elias knew the alien authorities would not stop searching. Already their machines might be sweeping the streets, tracking energy signatures, listening for whispers he had stolen something from them. Not an object, but a life, and they would not forgive that. He rose slowly, checking the door, adjusting the old locks. His eyes scanned the shadows of the room. "We'll need to move again, soon," he muttered, more to himself than her. The girl's weak voice called to him. "Elias." He turned, surprised she remembered his name. Her eyes held his, glowing faintly in the dim light. "Don't leave me." The words froze him. His chest tightened. He stepped back to the cot and knelt beside her. "I won't. Not now. Not ever." Her hand slipped into his, trembling but warm. And in that moment, Elias felt the truth settle in his heart. He had become her only hope, but she had become his reason to keep going. The safe house might not last. Their hiding might not protect them forever. But tonight, in the quiet underground, they were not just survivor and savior. They were something more, bound together by life, by defiance, and by the fragile spark of trust. And as Elias sat beside her in the shadows, holding her hand, he knew this was only the beginning. The real fight had yet to come. The human sat on the chair beside the alien girl's bed, his body weak after giving his own blood. His skin was pale, sweat covered his forehead, but his eyes never left her face. Her breathing was steadier now, her faint glow returning, but he knew this moment of peace would not last. Outside the room, heavy footsteps echoed in the long metallic hallway. The alien doctors were returning for their rounds. Their voices carried through the walls, cold and careless. They had already written her name on the death record. To them she was gone, and soon they would discover the truth. Panic surged through the human. He looked around the room, his mind racing. If they saw her alive, they would ask questions. They would see the blood transfusion line still running. They would know he had broken their laws. He ripped the tube from his own arm and quickly wrapped a bandage around it. His hand trembled as he removed the evidence, stuffing the empty blood bag into his coat pocket. Then he leaned close to the alien girl and whispered, "Stay quiet. Stay with me." Her eyes fluttered weakly, as if she understood. She made no sound, no movement, only the slow rhythm of her breath. The door hissed open. 2 alien doctors entered, tall and cold. Their eyes swept the room. One of them frowned. "Why is the oxygen mask still on?" The human forced a calm expression. "I was checking the machines. Sometimes the staff forgets to turn them off." His voice was steady, but inside, fear gripped him. The doctors looked at him suspiciously. Their eyes moved to the girl. Her chest rose slightly, too alive, too steady. One of them stepped closer. He placed a hand near her face, checking for breath. The human's heart stopped. He clenched his fists, ready to fight if needed. But then the doctor pulled his hand back with a sneer. "Pointless. Her body only twitches as it shuts down. She is gone." The human nodded quickly, hiding the relief. Flooding his chest, the doctors turned away, muttering about their next patients. Within moments they were gone again, leaving the door hissing shut behind them. The human exhaled sharply. His whole body shook from the close call. He leaned closer, to the girl, whispering, "We can't stay here. They will come back, and next time they won't ignore you." His mind worked fast. He could not carry her through the main halls. Too many eyes, too many cameras. He needed another way, a hidden path, and he knew one. An old maintenance tunnel below the hospital, a place long forgotten by most. He gently lifted the girl from the bed. Her body was light, fragile, wrapped in a thin hospital sheet. She stirred weakly against his chest, her lips forming a faint sound. "Why?" He held her tighter, whispering, "Because they don't see your life, but I do." His words were sharp, filled with determination. Moving quickly, he slipped into the back corridor, his footsteps soft, his eyes alert. Every shadow felt dangerous, every sound a threat. He passed by storage rooms, equipment closets, and finally reached the old maintenance hatch. Rust covered the handle, dust coated the edges. No one had opened it in years. With effort, he forced it open. The creak of metal echoed like thunder. In the silence, he froze, listening for guards, but the halls remained empty. He slipped inside and pulled the hatch closed. The tunnel was dark and narrow. Pipes ran along the walls, dripping with condensation. The air smelled of rust and oil. The human moved carefully, his arms tight around the alien girl. Her head rested against his shoulder, her weak breath brushing against his neck. For a moment, he felt the weight of what he was doing. He was no longer just a wanderer or an ex-doctor. He was now a criminal in their eyes. He had broken the rules. He had stolen a life they had already thrown away, but when he looked at her, he knew he would not turn back. Her faint glow lit the tunnel just enough to guide his way. To him, it was like carrying a fragile star in the darkness. Behind them, alarms suddenly rang. Loud, shrill, echoing through the walls. His heart jumped. They had discovered something. Maybe they had noticed the missing oxygen. Maybe the records didn't match, whatever the reason they were looking now. He quickened his pace, his boots echoing on the metal floor. The tunnel forked into two paths. One led deeper underground, the other toward the city. He chose the city because somewhere out there was a chance, a place where they could hide. The alien girl stirred again, whispering faintly. "Safe?" Her voice cracked like a child's. He looked down at her, his face set with determination. "Not yet," he whispered, "but I'll get you there." And as he carried her deeper into the shadows, with the alarms of the alien hospital screaming, behind him he knew the truth. There was no going back now. He had broken their rules, crossed their lines, and for her he would cross even more. This was no longer just about saving a life. It was about defying a system that chose who lived and who died, and he had chosen to fight it alone with only one fragile life in his arms. The old maintenance tunnel finally ended at a rusty grate. The human pressed his shoulder against it, forcing it open with a heavy push. The night air rushed in, cold and sharp, carrying the distant sounds of the alien city. He stepped out into a narrow alley, shadows covering him. The alien girl in his arms stirred weakly, her faint glow hidden. Under the thin hospital sheet, he looked down at her and whispered, "You're safe for now." Though he knew it was a fragile promise, the alarms from the hospital still echoed faintly behind them. The city was alive with noise, hovering craft passing overhead, neon lights flickering in the mist. But no one looked at him. No one saw the fragile life he carried. He ducked into another alley, moving quickly until he reached an abandoned shelter he had discovered weeks ago. It was a small place hidden behind broken walls, forgotten by the world. He pushed the door open with his foot and slipped inside, closing it behind him. The room was dark and dusty, but it was safe. For now, that was enough. He laid the girl gently on a makeshift bed of old blankets. His hands lingered for a moment, afraid to let go. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked at him with confusion, her lips trembling. "Why?" He knelt beside her, his voice low and steady. "Because you were alive. Because no one else would help you." She blinked, trying to understand. Her people had abandoned her. Their doctors had declared her worthless. Yet here was a human, an outsider, risking everything for her. Her thin hand lifted weakly, trembling as it touched his wrist. The human froze, surprised. It was not strong, not steady, but it was a gesture, a silent thank you. For a moment, the fear and exhaustion inside him melted. He felt a strange warmth spread through his chest. It was not just the act of saving her, it was the bond forming between them, fragile, but real. He whispered softly, "You're stronger than they think. Don't give up." Her lips moved again, the words soft and broken. "Name yours?" He smiled faintly. "Elias," he said. His voice carried the weight of his past, a name he hadn't spoken in a long time. Her eyes closed slowly, but not in pain. This time it was rest, a fragile peace. He watched her breathing grow steadier, her body less tense. She was still weak, but she was alive. And that was all that mattered. Elias leaned back against the wall, exhaustion washing over him. His arm still ached from the transfusion, his body weak from blood loss. But his mind stayed sharp. He knew this was only the beginning. The hospital authorities would not forget. They would search for her, for him, and when they found them there would be no mercy. Yet when he looked at her again, lying quietly under the blanket, he felt no regret. He whispered to himself, "They left you to die, but now you live, that's all I need." Hours passed slowly, the night dragging on. Outside, the city hummed with life, but inside the small shelter, silence filled the air. Only the sound of their breathing, his tired, hers fragile, remained. At some point, the girl stirred again. Her eyes opened, brighter now. She looked at Elias, her voice still weak but clearer than before. "Why risk your life?" Elias sighed, his gaze fixed on her. "Because life is life, no one has the right to decide who should live and who should die." He leaned closer, his voice soft but firm. "And because I've already lost too many, I won't lose you." Her gaze softened. She did not fully understand his words, but she felt the weight behind them. She whispered only one word, "Thank you," before drifting back into sleep. In that moment, Elias felt something change inside him. This was no longer just about saving her from death. It was about protecting her future, about standing against the system that had abandoned her. Kowi looked out the broken window at the city lights beyond. His jaw tightened. His life had no clear path before, but now he had a purpose. He turned back to her, his voice steady. "You're not alone anymore." Her faint glow reflected in the shadows, and for the first time in years, Elias felt hope. Hope not just for her survival, but for what they could mean to each other. And somewhere deep inside the alien hospital, the records still marked her as dead. But here, in the arms of a human who refused to give up, her life had just begun. The cold white lights of the alien hospital flickered above her bed, making the room feel more like a prison than a place of healing. The alien girl lay still, her body fragile, her breathing shallow. She had once been full of life, but now, she looked like a broken shadow of what she used to be. Machines beeped beside her, each sound weaker than the last. Her skin glowed faintly with the color of her species, once bright, now pale. It was a silent sign that her strength was leaving. Her doctors stood around her bed, tall alien figures in long coats. Their voices were sharp and cold. They looked at her not with pity but with calculation, like she was already gone. One of them shook his head and said, "No hope remains. She is too weak. Her organs are shutting down. There is no point in wasting medicine on her." Another doctor wrote something on his digital pad and replied, "Yes, end the treatment. Use the supplies on patients who can survive. This one, she is already dead." The girl's faint breath caught in her throat as if her body heard the sentence before her mind did. But she could not open her eyes. She could not scream. Her body refused to move. Inside her mind, she begged, "Please, I don't want to die, someone help me." But her lips stayed still. Her voice was trapped inside. The doctors pressed buttons on the machines. One by one, the screens went black. The heart monitor gave a long, flat beep, and then silence. The tubes were pulled from her arms. The oxygen mask was removed. In their eyes, she was already a corpse. They turned their backs and walked away, their footsteps fading into the hallway. The room grew darker and quieter. Only the sound of her weak heartbeat, slow and painful, still whispered inside her chest. Tears rolled from the corners of her closed eyes, even though no one was there to see them. But someone was there. A human man stood in the shadow of the hallway. His coat was old, his shoes muddy from travel. He had no reason to be inside this alien hospital, but fate had brought him here. He was not a doctor, not anymore. He had once studied medicine back on Earth, long before he came to this world. But now he was only a wanderer, carrying the weight of his past. He saw the doctors leaving the room, their voices cold and final. His eyes narrowed and his chest tightened. He had seen this before. He had seen the moment when hope was stolen from someone who still had a chance. His feet carried him toward the bed, against all reason, against all rules. When he entered the room, he froze. The alien girl lay motionless, her skin pale, her breathing so thin it was almost invisible. For a second he thought they were right, that she was gone, but then he noticed the tiny tremble of her lips, the faintest rise of her chest. "She's still alive," he whispered, his voice shaking, his hands clenched into fists. How could they leave her like this? How could they decide her worth, her right to live? He stepped closer, his heart pounding in his ears. He placed 2 fingers gently against her neck, searching, praying. And there it was. A faint, weak pulse, fragile, but present. She was alive, barely, but alive. He felt anger rising inside. Him, anger at the doctors, anger at the cold system that chose who deserved to live and who did not. He had seen enough death in his life. He would not stand by and let it take her too. The human looked around the room, making sure no one was watching. The hallway was empty. The cameras too far to catch the small details. He leaned closer to the girl and whispered, "Don't give up. I'm here now." Her eyelids trembled at his voice, as if her body recognized the warmth in it. A small tear slid down her cheek. And for him that was enough. It was proof. Proof that she still fought, proof that she still wanted to live. He pulled the oxygen mask from the tray where the doctors had tossed it aside. His hands worked quickly, adjusting it back on her face. He turned the valve and forced the machine to start again. The hiss of air filled the silence. Her chest lifted, slightly as fresh breath entered her lungs. The monitors were gone, but he did not need them. He trusted his hands, his instincts. He checked her pulse again, still faint, but steadier now. The girl's lips parted slightly, a whisper of breath. Escaping, he leaned close, but her voice was too soft. Only a broken sound. Her eyes remained closed, but her face relaxed as if she felt some small comfort. The human man took a deep breath. He knew what he was doing was dangerous. If anyone caught him, he could be arrested, punished, maybe even killed. But in that moment, none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was the fragile life lying before him. He looked at her one more time, her face pale but strangely peaceful, and he made a silent promise. "They left you to die, but I won't. Not while I still breathe." And with that thought, the story truly began. The story of a human who chose hope when all others had chosen despair. The girl's chest rose weakly under the oxygen mask, each breath shallow like a candle about to go out. The human man sat on the edge of her bed, his eyes fixed on her fragile form. His heart pounded with every second. He knew he had bought her only a little time, not safety. He glanced at the door, afraid the alien doctors might return. If they caught him, they would drag him out. They would leave her to die again. And maybe this time, no chance would remain. But the hallway stayed empty. Only the hum of machines and the girl's faint breathing filled the room. He leaned closer, whispering, "Stay with me. Don't let go." His voice was gentle, but inside, fear tore at him. He remembered too well the feeling of losing patience on Earth. He remembered how powerless it felt when life slipped away before his eyes. He had sworn never to feel that again. The girl's eyelids twitched. Her lips moved beneath the mask. The human bent closer, straining to hear. At last a sound escaped, broken and fragile. "Why?" He froze. His breath caught in his throat. Her voice was like the faintest echo, almost too weak to exist, but it was real. She was speaking. "Why, save me?" Her words cracked like glass. The man swallowed hard. His throat burned with emotion. He wanted to tell her everything. That he could not stand injustice. That he could not watch innocence fade away. That he had already lost too many people. But in the end he said only, "Because you're still alive. Because you deserve a chance." Her lips trembled. A single tear slid from the corner of her eye. His words reached her even through the fog of pain, but time was running out. Her pulse was still weak. He could feel it when he checked her wrist. Her body was shutting down, and the oxygen mask alone was not enough. The human looked around the room desperately, searching for anything. He found a cabinet in the corner, half open. Inside were boxes of alien medical tools, strange vials of glowing liquid. and packets of blood stored for transfusions, but when he read the labels, his chest tightened. None matched her rare blood type. She would not survive long without it. He placed a hand against his chest, his mind racing. His blood. It was different human blood, but could it work? Could her alien body accept it? If not, it would kill her instantly. If yes, it could save her. He hesitated. Fear gnawed at him. He could end her life with one mistake. But then he looked at her again, saw her lips trembling, her body struggling. Every breath was a battle she was losing. "I can't let you go," he whispered. He opened the cabinet and pulled out the transfusion kit. His hands shook as he tore the seal. He had done this many times before on Earth, but never like this, never across species. He slid the needle into his own arm, blood flowing into the tube. He held his breath as he connected it to her. The crimson liquid of a human entered the veins of an alien girl. For a moment, nothing happened. Her chest still rose weakly, her body still limp. Doubt clawed at his mind. Had he just made her suffering worse? Then her body jerked. A weak gasp escaped her lips. Her eyelids fluttered. The faint glow of her alien skin brightened. Not much, but enough to see, enough to hope. The human let out a shaky breath. "Yes, it's working." His heart pounded. With relief and fear together, minutes passed slowly. Every drop of his blood that entered her was like a piece of his soul given away. He felt dizzy, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to stay awake, to keep holding on. Finally, her eyes opened, not fully, but just enough to reveal the strange beauty of her alien gaze. She stared at him in confusion, her lips forming silent words. He smiled weakly, though his face was pale. "You're safe. I won't let them take you." Her small hand twitched, struggling to rise, and then it touched his wrist, just a faint touch, but it was a sign. She was alive. She was fighting. Tears blurred his eyes. He had saved her, at least for now. But deep inside he knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The doctors would not ignore what he had done. The system would not forgive it. And yet when he looked into her weak but living eyes, he felt a fire inside him stronger than fear. "They left you to die," he whispered, his voice steady now. "But I will not. Not while I still breathe." In that quiet room, with danger closing in from every side, a bond had been formed, fragile but unbreakable. The bond between a dying alien girl and the human who gave her his last breath.